Hey fellow developers, I hope you all are doing fine. It has been almost 2 months since I last uploaded and I'm really very sorry for that. So without any delay, let's continue on with the final video of our profile image upload to Amazon S3 series. So in the last 2 videos, we made the front end of our application, which you can see is this. So here we can basically select a photo and then we are able to crop and also zoom that photo. So now the only thing left is to upload this edited image to an Amazon S3 bucket, and the URL that Amazon S3 will return will be then stored in MongoDB. So this is a task which is left, and we're going to do that same exact task in this video. So yeah, let's get started. So now let's go to VS Code, and here you will find some files. I will put the link to these files in the description, and I recommend you download it so that you and I are both on the same code base. For more clarity on the code and also the folder structures, you can watch my very last video, because as I already said, this video is a direct continuation of my last video. Now I will go to this server folder and then controllers and then this user controller file. So here I have written a very basic function called setProfilePic. So all our code related to our profile picture upload will be inside of this function. So here I have console.log the request.file subject. So now let's try to upload this image. Okay, I have already selected one. So now let's click on this upload button, and you can see that this is the cropped image that we have just sent from our front end. So now our main job is to upload this image to Amazon S3. So for that, I will install some packages. So those packages are Multer and then Multer S3 and also AWS SDK. So the packages have been installed, and I am gonna run npm audit fix to fix almost 6,000 vulnerabilities. So while it's getting fixed, let's go to Amazon S3. So I am already logged into my AWS account, which you can also do, and then I will go to services and then S3. Now let's create a new bucket, which I will name as, let's say, profile picture upload YouTube, and then everything is fine. And now just click on this create bucket button. So our bucket has been created. So now let's go to IAM. So from here we will be generating our API keys to access our S3 bucket. Now let's go to user groups, and I'm just going to create a new user group. So just click on this create group button, and then I will name the group as, let's say, use S3. So this is the name of the group, and below here we will have to attach some policies to this group that we are creating. So the policy that I'm going to search is S3, and here if you will see, then there are a bunch of different policies. So the one that I'm going to give to this group will be Amazon S3 full access. So now just click on this create group button, and yes, so this is our new group that we just created. Now let's go to users, and here I'm going to add a user. Let's name this user as S3 user, and we're gonna specify this programmatic access, right? And then next permissions, and then we will be adding this user to the group that we just created. So we created a group called use S3. So now I'm gonna add this user to this group use S3. So now let's do next. You can just skip it, it's not required. So just review your settings before you create your user. So as you can see, our group is use S3. This is the username, S3 user. Okay, so everything is fine. So as you can see, this is our access key ID, which I'm gonna copy, and then I'm gonna paste it inside of our environment variables. So here I'm gonna create a new variable called, let's say, S3 access key and paste it. And also I'm going to copy this secret access key, which I'm going to name as S3 secret access key. So now we will be using these keys to access our S3 bucket. So okay, it's fine to close it now. And we will also need the region in which our S3 bucket is. So I will again go to S3 and then I will click on here. My S3 bucket is in this AP South 1 region. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to create a new variable called S3 bucket region and paste the string that I just copied. So these variables are fine. Now we can carry on with our Multer setup. Now let's import the 3 packages that we just installed. So first I'm gonna import AWS. And then let's import Multer. And at the last I'm gonna import Multer S3. So now in order to connect to the S3 bucket, we have to do new aws-s3, and here we have to pass an object that accepts few options. So the first one will be access key ID, which if you see, then it is this S3 access key. So we are going to pass this string here as the property value. So that will be process.env.s3 access key. And then the second option will be secret access key, which will be this S3 secret access key. And the last option will be the region in which our S3 bucket is. So that will be process.env. and the bucket region. And we will store the return value in a variable, let's say called S3. Now let's use Multer to upload the files. So I'm gonna go inside of this setProfilePic function and call Multer function. So this accepts an object, and here we can pass different options. So for this project, I'm just gonna pass one option, which will be the storage option. And here I'm gonna pass Multer S3. Again, this is a function which accepts an object, and here also we can pass different options related to our Multer S3. So here what it accepts is S3, and then I will pass S3. So this S3 is basically this. So we are storing the return value in a variable called S3, and we are passing that return value to this S3, right? So now the other option will be bucket. So bucket is basically the name of the bucket. So if we remember, then the name of the bucket is profile picture upload YouTube, right? So this is the name of our bucket. So I'm gonna just copy and paste it here as a string. So this is our bucket name, right? And then the third option will be metadata. So this is not that important, so I'm just gonna paste some code over here. And the last option will be key. This is a bit important. So here let's write the function. It will be function, then request file, and then cb. So if you're wondering what is the cb, then cb is just a callback function. And then inside of this function, I'm gonna do cb null and the name of the file. So this callback function accepts two parameters. One I've passed as null, and the second one will be the file name. So let's say I'm gonna put file name as image.jpg, right? So this will be the name of the file which will get stored in our S3 bucket. So now let's store the return value in a variable called, let's say, upload. Hence from now onwards, all operations will be done on this variable upload. And also what I'm seeing is that the key and the value is same. So in JavaScript, if the key and the value is same, we can just put a single value like S3. So this will work exactly same as before. And also to make this piece of code reusable, we can move this inside of a function. Let's say I'm going to call or write a function called upload, and this will be an arrow function. So let's cut and paste the code over here. So I've created a function called upload, right? So to make this piece of code more reusable, what I can do is that instead of putting a static bucket name, I can do bucket name and then pass the bucket name over here. So now this bucket name becomes a parameter, right? So whenever we call this function, we can just put the bucket name, and that bucket name will then come here and it will accept, or you can say this can be used for different bucket names, right? Now let's use this upload function inside of our set profile pic function. So upload, as you can see, we have to pass our bucket name over here. So I'm going to pass this, and in fact this will return another function which is called single. So let's chain it dot single, and it accepts a string which acts like a key. So let's put the key as let's say image upload. I'm going to show you what this exactly does or where this can be used. Just hang on a second, okay? And then we can store its return value inside of yet another variable called upload single. Now let's call this upload single function. It will accept some parameters. So the first one will be request and then response, and the last one will be a callback function, which in turn will accept a parameter called error, and this will be an arrow function to be specific, right? So here I will basically run a check which basically says that if there is any error, then we return it with a status code of, let's say, 400, and a response saying that success is false, and a message with error dot message. But if everything is fine, then we can console dot log our request dot file subject, right? And also I'm going to send this file subject back to the client. So let's cut and paste this line over here. So before we upload the image, I'm going to check one thing. So for that, we have to go to our front-end code, which is inside of this src folder, components, and then cropper.jsx. So here if you see, then I'm doing form data.append cropped image, right? So here in our backend, this string that we pass inside of this single function has to be exactly same as the one we are using here, right? So if this is cropped image, then this has to be cropped image, or if this is image upload, then this has to be image upload. So let's do cropped image. So I'm going to change this image upload string to cropped image. And also inside of our index.js file, which is present inside of this server folder, you will see that we have used express file upload to parse the form data, but this is not required since Multer already does that. So I'm just going to remove it from here, and let's also remove the import. So now we are finally ready to test whether our file upload is actually happening or not. So let's go to our front end, and I'm going to click on this upload button. What I'm seeing is undefined, so request.files is undefined, but let's check whether something has been uploaded here or not. So I'm going to do refresh, and yes, as you can see, we have successfully uploaded the file, but here we are not getting anything. So this is because request.files is not present. It will be request.file, so the s will not be there. So now if I check it again, and yes, we are getting this object. So request.files .file is this object, right? And if you see at the last, we have a property called location. So this is the location of the image which is present on our S3 bucket. So we are going to use this image, a link, and upload it onto our MongoDB database. So before doing that, let's go over some of these properties. So the first one is field name. So this comes from here. So we have passed cropped image inside of the single function, which ultimately becomes the field name. And the original name comes from the front end, because here, as you can see, we have uploaded our cropped image to the backend using this name, using croppimage.jpg, which ultimately becomes the original name. And here we have encoding, MIME type, and the size of the uploaded image, the bucket name, and the key. So this key is this, right? So we have used image.jpg as the key, which you can see is here. And also the name of the file is exactly same as the key. So if you want different files, different file names, you can do some operations over here to produce those dynamic file names, right? But let's not do that here right now. And also one thing that you haven't noticed is if we try to upload multiple times, we still are getting the same file name because we are using the same key, right? So whenever we upload it, it just overwrites the previous file because the name, or you can say the file name, is exactly the same. So that is the thing that you have to remember. You cannot upload two files that have the same file name because then it will overwrite it. Please keep this thing in mind before uploading files. Let's say we want to keep the files every time we upload. So to do that, we just have to make sure that whatever name we are passing it here should be unique. So to make this string unique, I'm going to convert it to a template string and add a timestamp to this name. So to add a timestamp, we just have to do date.now. So now this will give us a unique timestamp every time we upload, because timestamps are something which is always unique. So let's check it out. I'm going to upload this image a couple of times. So 1, 2. So I have uploaded this image twice. So let's check how many files we now have here. So in total we should have 3 files. So let's do refresh. And yes, so now we have 3 files. These 2 files are the files that I just uploaded. And as you can see, there's a number after this image string. And this number is the timestamp in which this file was uploaded. So this is how you can create unique file names. Now let's create our MongoDB schema. So I will just go to the models folder and I will create a file called user model. And I'm going to import mongoose. To create a schema, we have to do new mongoose.schema. And here we have to pass the field names. So here I will just give one field name, which will be, let's say, photo URL. And this will be a string. And then I will store its return value in a variable called, let's say, user schema. And then we have to do mongoose.model. And the collection name will be user. And I will pass the user schema. Now let's export. But before that, I have to store the return value in a variable, let's say, called user. And then I will export this user variable. So we have created our MongoDB schema for the user collection. So now let's go back to our user controller file, and here I'm going to import that user model. And the location of the model was models and then user model. Now I'm going to have to make this arrow function an async function because we will be using the await keyword. So now let's do await user.create, and the field name was photo URL. So I'm going to do photo URL. And if you remember, then rec.file gave us the file object, and the S3 URL was present on a property called location. So now we are basically storing the S3 URL in this photo URL field, which will in turn become a document in our user collection. So now let's test it out. I'm gonna go back to a front end, and let's say I'm gonna upload this picture. And let's check our S3 bucket of how many images do we have now. And yes, we have 4 images. Now let's check our MongoDB database. And here I'm going to connect to our MongoDB database by using the MongoDB URI, which I can find inside of our environment variable. And this is the URI which we can use to connect to our database. So I'm just going to paste the URI over here and click on the connect button. So my database name was my first database, and inside of this database, as you can see, we have a collection called users, and this users collection has one document. And yes, that document has a field called photo URL, which in turn is storing our URL of the last uploaded image, which we just did few seconds back. So now I'm just gonna copy this URL and go to our browser, and let's paste it here. So as you can see, now we have an error which is saying access denied. So by default, all S3 buckets are private. So in order to read, or you can say view the image, we have to make our S3 bucket public. So to do that, we just have to go to our bucket and then permissions. And here, as you can see, we have blocked all public access enabled. We have to first disable it. So let's uncheck it and then save changes. Now we have to write confirm and then confirm. So this has made our bucket public, but still our objects, or you can say the images, are not public yet. So to make that public, we will have to write a bucket policy. So the bucket policy is just some JSON data, and I'm going to paste a policy. So this is a policy which will make our objects or images public. But before that, I just have to replace this piece of string with our bucket name. So our bucket name is profile picture upload YouTube. So by writing this policy, we have made our objects public. So now let's save our changes. And now if I refresh, as you can see, now I'm able to download the image, right? So let's download it and check. So yes, this is the image that we just downloaded. So yes, our profile picture upload is working fine, right? So now let's go back to our backend, and here I'm gonna send, instead of rec.file object, I'm gonna send the S3 URL which is present inside of the location property. So now let's go back to our front end, and as you can see, we are console logging the response that we are getting from our backend. So let's go back to our website, and I'm gonna upload this image again. And here, as you can see, this is the response that we are getting from our backend, and this is the URL of the image that we just uploaded. So now our main job is to replace our avatar with this image, but there is a catch. Now going back to our app.jsx file, before that, let's close these files. So in our app.jsx file, we can see that we are using the render avatar functional component, which is this. So we are using this render avatar functional component, which is this, and here we are using the cropper component below, right? So this cropper component that we have here is being used inside of this avatar component, and our avatar image is here, right? But we are getting the response inside of the cropper component, which is this. So what we have to do is, now I will just create a state inside of this avatar file. Let's say avatar and then set avatar. And then I will pass this avatar here, right? And then we can pass this set avatar function to our render cropper component, and then we can extract it over here. And below, when we get the response, we can set our avatar to rest2.data. So this will change our avatar whenever we upload, or you can say whenever we change our profile picture. So let's test it out. I'm going to select a new photo, but now I'm going to select this one and then upload. Now let's clear it, and as you can see, here is the photo, or you can say the uploaded photo, right? So everything is almost working fine. So there are some small things that we have to fix, and those things are like, whenever I click on this upload button, there should be a spinner over here, right? So to do that, we just have to go back to a cropper.jsx file and import our spinner context, which we can get, not spinner, sorry, backdrop context, which we can get from here. So here I'm exporting this backdrop context. So I'm going to do import backdrop context from backdrop and then backdrop. So to use this backdrop context, we have to first call react.useContext and pass the backdrop context that we just imported. So this will give us, if we see, we have provided close backdrop and show backdrop as the value to this provider, right? So now we are going to extract these two functions from our backdrop context, and now I'm going to use the show backdrop function just before we actually make the API call, right? So this will start the spinner before the API call is made, and then at last we can, after the response has been parsed, we can then close the backdrop. We will also have to close the backdrop in case if there is any error, right? So let's test it out. I'm gonna do again, okay, we have to select an image. Let's select this image now, and as you can see, we are getting the backdrop, right? So yes, our image has been changed again. So our profile picture image upload is completed. There are many things that you can improve on, like we are now just storing the images, right? We have no idea which user has uploaded which image, but that requires some added information like authentication. We have to do many more other things, right? So that is totally outside the scope of this video. So here my main aim was to show you how you can store the returned S3 URL in a database like MongoDB, which we have achieved. So with this, we have come to the end of this video. I hope you all like it, and if you haven't subscribed my channel, I recommend you do subscribe it, because I make videos related to web development. See you in the next video. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye.